Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's Sunday Reset. For this week, our topic is going to be cleaning your house. I have no idea what is going on outside. We have been banging and making all kinds of noise since 8 o'clock in the morning. Hopefully it's not super loud, hopefully it's not distracting, but anyway. Clean your house. Yeah. I had the thought about someone that they're not all the way in the house. Now, when I speak about your house, obviously this can be literal. You can literally just really need to do a deep clean. And maybe that's where you're at. I don't know. But right now, I'm also speaking metaphorically. When I thought of this person, I had the thought that they're not all the way in the house. Meaning, they don't live in their head. They don't want to be in their head. They don't want to be alone with their thoughts. Coming from someone who used substances in the past to avoid being in their house. Now, I don't know what this person's experience is, and it is just a passing thought of, But in my case, I didn't want to be in my house because it was cluttered with other people's stuff. And it was my own stuff that I didn't want to deal with or I didn't know what to do with. And instead of clearing it out and dealing with it, I escaped and softened the edges and numbed myself to the point where it didn't matter what was in the house. I had to be there because you can't escape from who you are as a person. No matter what you do, no matter where you try to go, no matter how you try to distract yourself, you're always going to be there. And there was a certain point where I realized that I didn't want to avoid my house anymore. I think the literal instability with my home over the years really drove me to where I needed to deal with my house. I wanted to have a house, and that meant doing the work to make my house somewhere that I wanted to live. And that meant cleaning my house. I had to clean. I had to do it. I didn't want to. I didn't think it was fair. I didn't feel like I should have had to fix things that other people broke and get rid of things that other people brought into my house and left there, or things that they handed to me that they told me was mine and that I had to deal with it. And I got to the point where I finally wanted to. And there are tons of, Instagram reels and posts and things on TikTok telling you, oh, you need to do this. You need to heal. You need to do, you need to deal with the issues of your parents and all of this stuff. And people don't really, they'll give like these broad ideas of things you can do. And a lot of people don't really talk about the specifics of how they themselves dealt with these things. And sometimes that's because maybe they haven't actually dealt with it. or it's not really something that they have a problem, like it's not a problem they have. So they're just speaking from that abstract place of these are things that usually work, or these are things that are supposed to work, or they don't even offer that at all. And they put it behind a paywall and they try to make you subscribe to their newsletter or their Patreon and all of this stuff. Here are things that I actually did to clean my house. Oh Lord. Right on time, right? Hopefully it's not too loud. I mean, my little mic is right there, so hopefully it's close enough. Things that I did. This one was really hard for me because I'm a Virgo. But it was also really easy for me because I'm a Virgo. And it was admitting my fault in situations, in my role in certain situations. Virgos are hard on people in general, but they are the hardest on themselves. And I had to learn where I was actually the problem and where I wasn't actually the problem. And that meant being honest about my behavior and my response and my reactions. And a lot of the things that I hold shame about are the reactions. Those moments where someone said something that triggered me, that made me feel, that hit that nerve, that, you're not good enough, or you don't know what you're talking about, or just that I don't like you button that people like to press sometimes. And I reacted in those moments, and there were times where I genuinely was in the wrong. And I had to sift through the memories of and feelings of guilt that I had from where maybe I was protecting myself and defending myself or standing up for myself. And maybe I was just being a jerk. And that can be hard to admit when you're in the wrong. But it's one of the things that definitely made the biggest difference because it showed me the reality of who I am as a person. I definitely had the feeling that I was mean or that I had a way of making people feel less than and that I was a know-it-all or whatever. And I definitely went too far in one direction when it came to seeing myself that way. And people said it all the time, and so I just started to, whenever someone would respond in a negative way to something that I said, I just assumed that that's what it was. And sometimes it was. And a lot of the times it wasn't. And it really helped me understand the difference and learn that sometimes people just don't like what you said and that it has nothing to do with you and you didn't say the wrong thing. You said exactly what you should have said, but they just didn't want to hear it or they didn't like it and they took it the hard way. Another thing that made a big difference in the clutter in my house was honestly just gaining perspective on the adults in my life. Maybe you've had the realization when you reach the age that your parents were when they had you. You know, you can sort of see where they were, how they were looking at the world, and maybe a little bit of what they felt. And that can go two ways. It can go in the direction of you realizing they had less of a sure footing than you thought they did because you realize how young they were. And the flip side is that you put yourself in there, you finally are where they were, and you say, they could have done a lot better than they did. And you see both sides. And that one is really just taking the time to notice it, because maybe you are already past the age that your parents were when they had you. Maybe not, but if you are, maybe you've never taken the time to actually consider what they were going through, where their head was at. And that goes for anyone that you've ever crossed paths with. It doesn't necessarily have to be your parents. It could be any authority figure or a friend. Maybe you find yourself in a similar circumstance to a friend, and suddenly you have a different insight or perspective on something. Or maybe you met someone who has close-up experience of something, and they gave you an insight that you didn't have before, and suddenly you understand someone else's perspective on a situation a little bit better. But that's taking the time to notice those things. And it's something that I've come across a lot with different members of my family, where I'll hear something or I'll do something. I've even had dreams about people, and suddenly something would click into place about, you know, their situation a little bit more. And it's definitely gone a long way to helping me find grace and understanding for the people in my life. Taking the time to notice where you might have more perspective than you used to. Something else I've mentioned before, treating yourself like a good friend or a loved one, is an easy way to be softer and more loving towards yourself. If maybe that's something that's hard for you or unfamiliar to you. I have a picture of myself from, it was either my third or my fourth birthday. I want to say third birthday. Maybe even second. I was really little. I think third birthday though. But I have that picture, and I have it as one of the backgrounds on my phone. It like rotates randomly through the pictures that I have. And so every once in a while I'll go to look at my phone and it'll be me. And that picture always reminds me, like, she's still in there. And when I have those negative thoughts, which don't come up often anymore, I've really come a long way when it comes to how I view myself and how I talk to myself. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm definitely a lot nicer to myself than I have ever been in my life. And I think that that's part of what it is. It's knowing that that version of myself still exists, and she's who I'm also talking to when I'm speaking to myself and when I have those thoughts. And it makes it really hard to be mean when you're talking to a 3-year-old, you know? So maybe if you have a childhood photo or even a baby picture of yourself. It might be good to put it somewhere that you will see it often, and it will sort of, I don't want to say, it's not desensitized. That's not the word that I'm looking for. But when you see that picture and you always have the thought of, that's me, it makes you realize that those thoughts in the person that you're talking to, that's who you're talking to. Yes, you're talking to the face in the mirror, and yes, you're talking to the version of yourself that you were when you were in high school and in junior high, in every past version of yourself. That's also who you're talking to. But it's really hard to be mean to a little kid. Like, it's really hard. And it helps a lot to remind yourself that you are still that little version of yourself. You are every past version of yourself. People like to talk about the death of who you were and things like that, but I don't necessarily resonate with that. Your past self doesn't go anywhere. It just gets integrated into all of who you are. You are every single version of yourself that you have ever been and will ever be. All at the same time. They're all in there. And it helps if you learn to make friends with all of them. And it's really easy to make friends with a little kid. They're easy. They're easy to love. They're easy to be kind to. That went a long way, for sure. Was reminding myself that that version of me who was so full of just love for everyone around her. She's still in there. And she deserves to be treated with love. She deserves to be cared for. And she deserves to have a wonderful home. And even if that wasn't always the reality for her, I can do that for her now. That was a big one for me. I actually said the other day out loud, I like myself. I think I'm the coolest person I've ever met. And I meant it. It wasn't me, just saying what I think people would be impressed by. I really meant it. And there was absolutely a time where I would not have ever said that and not been making a joke, like a self-deprecating, like, oh yeah, I love myself. I really do love myself. I think I'm really cool. I think I'm an incredible person. I like my house. I like my house. And this was kind of a long Sunday reset, and I have more things that I can go on about and that I've done that have worked for me. Maybe I'll revisit the house cleaning in another Sunday reset. But for now, I will leave you with that. Spend some time with at least one of those ideas this week. Journal on it. Think about it while you brush your teeth or while you're stirring your oatmeal in the morning for breakfast. Whatever. You have a spare moment instead of losing yourself in your phone. Clean your house. And maybe literally clean your house. That might also be a thing. It is Taurus season, and we're getting ready to shift into Gemini season, which means we need a stable and clean environment for the chaos and the change and all of that mercurial, mutable energy that is coming in. If you like this video, throw your girl a like. If you would like to join me for some more random thoughts and some yoga and meditation, subscribe to the channel. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope that you are well, and I hope that you will continue to be kind to yourselves and to one another.